Thanks so much, Albina. Good to see everybody and welcome to today's Notes from the Field. It's my great pleasure to introduce Aditi Patil. Aditi is a nature conservationist. She's the author of the book Patriarchy and the Pangolin. It's a great read if you haven't read it already. I have. She's also a graduate of our MPhil in conservation leadership here at the University of Cambridge. She was a member of the 22-23 cohort. And since then, she's co-founded Conservation Indica, a young woman-led feminist nature conservation NGO working to make conservation research accessible and meaningful to all. With a decade of conservation research experience in India, across organizations like the Ministry of Environment, WCS India, WWF India. Aditi is an up-and-coming voice for nature conservation in India, and it's our great pleasure to host her today. So, Aditi, I'm going to hand over to you, and tell us your story about your current experiences in the field.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Howard. This is
Till you start, Aditi. Sorry. Guys,
No
if you have any questions, please keep it till the end, till she finishes her talk. And you can chat them in the chat room and I can read them out for you. But please let her talk first and then we can ask her questions. She will take maybe 20 minutes or so. And then we have 15 minutes for questions. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Albina. Thank you, Howard. Albina, do you want me to share my screen? Can you see? All right. Yeah, so thank you, Howard, again. And this is a very good opportunity to share Conservation Indica's journey. And we were just talking, Howard and I and Albina were just talking that I was discussing this idea with everybody when I was in the 2023 cohort, and I was discussing with Chris, Howard, my mentor, Pamela, and of course, everybody, my cohort mates, and it feels rather surreal to be speaking and sharing about my journey with you all. So thank you everyone for joining. I am going to talk about starting Conservation Indica in today's times, rather, times of political upheaval and the weird things that are happening around us. It's a heavy topic and there's been a lot to think through. A lot of self-reflection has also gone down into this presentation, and not just recently when Albina's threats started cropping up, but almost every day since we began this journey. So yeah, I'll jump straight in. This is the organization that I co-founded with my long-term friend and colleague Manya Singh, who's very kindly joined in today, even when it's dinner time here in India. So thank you, Manya. While choosing a name, we were certain that we wanted something Indian, because to make anything work in India, the approach has to have a local flavor. It has to be Indian. And I'll show a few pictures to explain this. So there was this cake contest in Shillong, a place in Northeast India, and a marine conservation researcher decided to enter that contest, and she baked this amazing marine themed cake. And India is famous for its temples, and everything is sacred from mountains to rivers and forests, and yet there's a lot of pollution. There's a lot of local art. This is a picture from Shillong's forest office, the same place where the cake is from. And this is a local artist who volunteered to paint the walls of a government forest office. India is also the place with weird food combinations. And also you'll find a frame of the Beatles on, people's houses' walls and restaurants. Of course, India is also the place where stones are worshipped and held sacred. Geology is also worshipped. So this is India, and hence we chose the name Indica, because we want to do conservation the Indian way, which is actually a lot of different ways. This is the day when we registered Conservation Indica last year. And we celebrated with this very Indian thing of hand tattooing with henna. And that's my hand, and Manya has very beautifully drawn our cat, Mia, who wasn't amused at all, nor with the henna design or our website. Two other interrelated recognitions also go behind choosing the taxonomical term indica. First is that much of India's ecological richness exists out of formal protected areas, sustained by communities, traditions, and informal stewardship. And second is that the conservation discourse and conservation action in India remains heavily centralized, privileging scientific expertise. And often this causes marginalization of already marginalized communities. So we wanted something that is very micro-Indian. We are a very small team. On this side are our 4 core members, and the other 2 are on and off part-time colleagues. And a small disclaimer here. Conservation Indica became operational only in June 2024. Sorry. I was just stating a disclaimer that I am speaking with just under a year's experience of running a new organization, and we are still figuring things out. But I'll share whatever we have learned so far. Taking a few steps back, why start a new conservation organization from scratch and at this moment? What brought us here started in 2017 when I and Manya were working on a research project on agroforestry in Gujarat. We got an award for the research, a book came out of it, and a beautiful friendship too. Since then, we worked with different organizations. I've had the privilege of working with 2 of the big ones and an Indian government agency. Incredible people, important work. So it's not like there's a shortage of conservation organizations. And yet, after more than a decade in this field, Manya and I both felt the need to do something different. Partly, yes, because we are the little adventurous people and enjoy a good risk within reason. But more seriously, there were deeper systemic reasons that made it feel necessary. And that's really what I want to focus on today, because those systems shape all of us, whether we are starting something new or working within existing structures. Also, this is not just about our organization. It's also about a larger question that I think many of us are sitting with. What does it mean to begin something hopeful and locally grounded in times of today? Let's zoom out for a moment. We are living through what scholars are now calling a polycrisis. It's a time when multiple crises converge: political instability, ecological collapse, economic inequality. It's not just that the planet is warming, it's that the institutions are failing, inequalities are deepening, and our collective capacity to respond is also slightly fractured. And we've found that for every conservation problem, there is a market-based solution. All of us in the MPhil have learned from Dr. Bhaskar that accounting for nature and how economics plays into it. So economics in nature inherently isn't a right or wrong or a good or bad thing. But practically, we see how it's going. If there's air pollution, we can buy air purifiers. If it's getting too hot every summer, we can buy air conditioners, powerful ones. If leopards are hunting down your goats, you can buy a deterrent light. But not that light is not even working on our leopards. We have been experimenting at Conservation Indica, and the leopards are too smart. But this is what capitalism does. It sees individuals as economic units, leaving the most marginalized out of that system. And when the most marginalized collectivize, they rarely get amplified by big conservation organizations, those that have power. We've also learned in working in this capitalistic conservation sector that new players don't seem to be welcome. We knew about this, the business side of things, and that's why when we were registering, Conservation Indica is registered as a Section 8 company, which according to Indian regulations is similar to a society or trust, but it is an entity that can do business and which can earn profits. But the profits have to be plowed back into the cause, which is conservation. So we knew this and we entered the sector very well knowing this. But we soon found that new players are not very welcome. I'll give an example of the carbon credits market. Manya has more experience in the carbon credits market than me. But together at Conservation Indica, we've learned firsthand that these markets are heavily gate-kept. They are being controlled by tech and finance bros and not conservationists. And if conservationists have a role to play, it's that of providing volume. Conservationists are not at the negotiating table of profits, at least in India. More concerningly, people doing the real tangible work, like producing biochar or growing organic vegetables, are gate-kept from the carbon markets. They don't know where their generated carbon credits are being sold. And they get a very small percentage of the total carbon credit profits. We also live in a post-truth capitalistic world. So in this context, to speak of conservation requires grappling not just with ecology, but with politics, power, and epistemology. How we know what we know, and who gets to decide what counts as valid knowledge of nature are important things. Everybody knows conservation is political. There's political ecology, political economy, and so many brilliant books coming from scholars of these disciplines. But do conservation organizations act like conservation is political? In most organizations, conservation strategies are shaped by the fear of political backlash, not by a principled confrontation of authoritarian or extractive agendas. We tiptoe around the far right. We avoid upsetting funders, and we downplay our critiques. That is what Manya and me, that is what made Manya and me stop and ask, how much are we really in control of? We've all been part of beautiful conservation projects. We know each other's work here in UCLan. I know most of my cohort mates are doing amazing work in so many countries. And these are very real wins. They take years of work and huge investments of time, emotion, and money. But then something like this happens. For those who don't know, recently the richest capitalist family of India opened a private zoo, which they claim is also a rescue and rehabilitation center. And you can see our PM inaugurating it. There have been allegations of illegal wildlife trade to source wildlife to this private zoo. And there have been many reports from the media, but all of those media reports, you can't find them online now. So when something like this happens, you realize the scale of what we are up against. And this is just one example. Now, I'm not saying that this one person's private project erases all the good work that we do, but the disparity in scale, capital, and impunity is stark. What's perhaps more heartbreaking is the silence of many big conservation organizations. Their members, including me, would collect data, analyze the data that show why these projects are ecologically disastrous. But the organizations themselves would rarely speak up. It's a new conservation organization the answer? Obviously not. But it is things like this that made us feel frustrated and drove us to at least take a step back, separate ourselves, and see if we can work in a ground-up manner. In its micropolitics, of course, with micro-local actors, tweaking what little we can at our level, while also calling out the big players in power. Is Conservation Indica doing it? Yes, we are both online and offline. Please check out our Instagram. But we can also afford to be vocal because we are still very small and largely invisible. We do try to speak our minds when we meet government officials also. And they already know the issues. It's not about awareness anymore. It's about the willingness to act. And these days, just practicing basic constitutional governance also feels quite radical. And often the courage to resist extractive development comes from students, indigenous leaders, and local activists, who then pay the price for that courage. People feel anxious, overwhelmed, and politically disempowered. What we call apathy is often a symptom of structural alienation from decision-making processes. Conservation Indica, this is the context in which Conservation Indica was born, in these systemic structures. Maybe despite them, maybe because of them, but this is where new conservation work can intervene, not only through ecological action, but by helping to reweave the frayed civic and ecological relationships. Because the dominant conservation models that we see, top-down, exclusionary, often apolitical, they are no longer enough. And because hope in this context is also a political act. So what do we hope to do? At Conservation Indica, we work around 3 principles: elevating traditional knowledge. Research papers may guide policy, but we want grounded action, navigating its own micropolitics. We want local environmental stewardship in communities that often contribute data to research papers, but they do not get anything meaningful in return to engage with such research. We also recognize relational ecology. In that sense, ecosystems that are shaped by ever-changing human and non-human relationships. And these ecosystems cannot always be managed by certain actors, which are often politically more powerful than some others. We are also very well aware and conscious of narrative justice, thinking about whose stories get told and by whom in the conservation discourse. So nothing wildly new, but these principles are rarely practiced with depth. Of course, launching in a time of polycrisis comes with its own challenges. Manya and I don't come from generational wealth. We were lucky to get graduate degrees, but we are working in a system that is stacked against new players. A small team means I and Manya are constantly chasing funding deadlines and learning to deal with rejections. We multitask a lot, from camera trapping to shooting with a DSLR camera, birding, grassland work, and of course, the most dreadful, finance and accounting. Then there's a host of compliance issues that discourage funding new small organizations. We cannot access CSR grants until we complete 3 years of operations. We also cannot access foreign grants, which again requires us to complete 3 years, even to apply for the foreign grant certificate. And even if we get the certificate, it's a gamble about your connections. So we have to rely on seed grants, which are very small, from Indian philanthropies and individual donations. And even there, we face challenges. One is the professional proposal formats, especially with respect to finance. I'll give you an example. So we've been doing camera trapping work with a community called the Madhari community. They own livestock, goats, sheep, buffaloes, and cows, and they graze these livestock in the grasslands. These grasslands did not have leopards up until 5 years ago, but there was an airport built on the leopard habitat, which made leopards come into these grasslands. So now the leopards are attacking the livestock. We've been trying to understand the movement of leopards in these grasslands so that the livestock belonging to the Maldhari community is not hunted down. So Govind Bhai, our team member, leads this work of camera trapping in the villages. And he needs a laptop to do the data transfer from the camera traps. And the laptop that he's using now is a rented one. So we need to buy him a new one. But try finding a grant that lets you list laptop as a conservation expense. There might be several ones globally, but in India, we applied to one equipment grant, and we were told that laptops do not qualify. There are other things that you can get, Garmin GPS things and camera traps, and we did get camera traps from one such equipment grant, but not a laptop. So yes, small things become big hurdles. Grant-making agencies also need to be more considerate of the needs of new organizations and start accommodating things like salary costs and initial setup costs. Even success, we find, is very narrowly defined. Your proposals would ask you how many hectares would you restore or protect? How many species would you count? How many threats will you remove? But rarely will a conservation grant support removing, say, a threat from an illegal sandstone mining unit placed next to a reserve forest. This is a true story from our landscape. You can see in the rightmost picture, Manya and Govind Bhai standing on this amazing rock formation, which is the leopard habitat. There are several denning sites of leopards. And back there, you can see some smoke, which is actually a sandstone mining unit illegally put there because of some local politicians backing. Even the forest department has not been able to remove it. Which brings me to stories. In a world saturated with data, stories remain one of our most transformative tools when done with care and ethics. And we've found the strength, solidarity, and imagination among students and community leaders. Recently, we organized the Grassland Premier League. It was a cricket tournament wherein we used cricket as a medium to create awareness and outreach for the wildlife that is present in this particular grassland. There were 7 teams, each named after local wildlife. So there was Jhalawadi hyenas. Jhalawad is the name of the region also. So you see there's a connection between the region's identity, people's identity with the wildlife. Another team was called Surat Cobras. Then there were leopard strikers. Then there was Tufani deer. So there were amazing discussions when these team names were being decided. There was a proper auction, and the discussions went in the direction, say, why isn't there a tiger team? So then people said, we don't have tiger in our landscape. We have leopards. So let's have a leopard team. This was an amazing tournament that we had for such a small team as Conservation Indica with only 4 core members. We were able to pull off this tournament because this is something that people also had an interest in. 84 players from 15 different villages participated. So now we will have less problems when we scale our work. So this is one way of scaling when you are a small team. Some regional media also covered this tournament. Being women, I and Manya don't have much problems getting women's voices from the villages. Collaborations are very important for small organizations like us. There's a Green Hub Videography Fellowship that operates in India since more than 10 years now. We hosted 2 of their videography fellows, which also helps us to create a documentary or a filmography around our work, which then we can take to possibly other funders. There's another NGO called Grassland Trust of India. Their landscape is strikingly similar to us. They had produced certain films. So we had a movie screening in one of our project villages. And there were lots of interesting discussions after that. So far, stories and collaborations have really helped us. And if I have to leave you with a few provisional lessons from our first year, it would be these. Start where you are emotionally, geographically, intellectually. There's no perfect time or place. Build relationally, not transactionally. Invest in care, friendship, and long term presence. Resist the urgency. If we can't immediately pause corporate destruction caused by the elites, we must not expect scalability or acceleration in terms of conservation action. It's good to hold complexity, accept contradiction, messiness, and nuance. Coming back to how India is a very chaotic place, there is a lot happening everywhere all the time. But there are also moments of pure peace and content as well. And it's also good to laugh at ourselves once in a while. It's also good to call ourselves out. So that's a random post we made on Instagram. And we are still learning. And I'm so grateful to be doing it with the people who care. So thank you so much, Howard and Albina, for this opportunity. I think we can take questions now. I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much. That was so interesting, so quick, and so yeah. So welcome anyone with questions. You can unmute yourself. You can raise your hand and or type your question if you don't want to ask yourself. Anyone wants to start off? Oh, there is somebody asking, can you repeat the name of the Instagram? It's, yeah, we can chat there and I can send the profile. Maybe I will be the first one then. Yeah, as you may know, I'm also coming from a very unpolitically unstable region and with all these tensions and yeah. Have you maybe experienced already or anything like a threat coming directly to you or your team members? Or is it like a thing in India, let's say, when you work for conservation? Is it kind of life-threatening thing when you do something like conservation?
Not yet, not a direct threat yet. But remember that we are very small. We are working in two villages in Gujarat, and we are working in two districts in Himachal Pradesh. Thanks to my friendship with Sandeep ji, which was not friendship initially, but has become now. But so because of our small scale and protection from the forest department in one state, protection from the community in the other state, we've not received any direct threats in terms of life. But there are other things, other religious things, in the sense that where I and Manya work in Gujarat is it's a temple town. So you can't have non-veg. And both I and Manya and the field office that we have and the people that come to us, our interns, their food is regulated in a way because we can't have any eggs for breakfast. So this is one very weird thing to work around when you are hosting researchers and interns from other places. Uh, um, Manya, can you think of any other threat?
Yeah, Albina, that's a really good question. And I can remember actually from an incident, Aditi, you were also a part of it. So we have not been faced with the direct threat by please don't do this, otherwise we'll kill you. But we have certainly been made aware that if you do this, you will be dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this has actually came from a very senior scientist who led the cheetah project in India, cheetah reintroduction plan. His name is Y.V. Jhala, and he has brought all the African cheetahs into India, and we met him. And what he said specifically was this, that you're working in a very clannish town. People are very clannish here. All powerful people still holding on to the land from the princely state empire area time. And if you go against mining, stone quarrying, and the degradation of the land, you might be dead. So yeah, these were the words. So we have been told time and again by people in power and when we go and talk to them, be it a bureaucrat or something like scientist, this senior scientist, we have been made aware of that. So yeah, we are working around it, but we have not yet received the direct threat. So let's see how it goes. Because our land, definitely Gujarat. Gujarat is also where our Prime Minister Modi comes from, and Gujarat is the model on which India is being built, and it is the model of development and development, the Western industrialized development, and every piece of land that is there has been now given or being are in process of being given to the billionaires of the country. So yeah, we are definitely very aware of the problems that we will definitely face. Yeah.
We've been cautious enough to not directly say that we are working on land or on protecting land, and we would cause things that would put the land ownership at risk. We're not saying that yet because we are only less than a year old. But we'll have to figure out how we say that and how we navigate our way around it, because land is a tricky issue.
There is a question from Sunita. Do you want to ask yourself or shall I read? What are the major challenges faced by local communities as well by your team in Gujarat, especially those living near protected areas and balancing their livelihood with conservation efforts? That's the question.
Yeah, so like I was saying, where we work, the community that lives there is the Maldhari community. It's a semi-nomadic pastoralist community that has had a traditional livelihood of grazing, herding livestock, sheep, goats, buffaloes, and cows. And it's close to a city called Rajkot. And when Rajkot airport was built, it was built on leopard habitat. Now, a few leopards from there went to the Rajkot city, and the others came into this side, which is where we work. Now, the Maldhari community over here was not used to living with leopards. There are other animals that they were used to, but not leopards. So now the problem that they are facing is the leopards are attacking their livestock, and it's only going to increase. The forest department has also admitted that the leopard numbers are increasing, and there's no way to sort of catch them and put them somewhere else. So this is what they are grappling with. Other than that, there are, again, land issues. There are grasslands which had been notified, like Manya was saying, these are princely states. So the kings used to own lands, and they used to lease out the lands to these Maldhari people to graze. Some of them still hold that land holding, and they make it difficult rather, or charge a lot of money for the Maldhari community to graze their animals. Slowly, the grasslands are being used for other purposes. Like Manya was saying, Gujarat is a model for development, and there's a lot of wind power, solar power coming up in the name of green energy, but no one's checking whether this green energy is really ecologically safe. Because we are seeing in our grasslands that there are a lot of windmills being installed, and they make a constant noise, and it's not easy to live around these windmills. The birds, I'm sure, are impacted. There are some studies which show that the birds have disappeared from that place. There are other grassland mammals like jackals, striped hyenas, Indian crested porcupine, Indian fox. All of them must have had some impact. We have not studied that yet. But these are the other things which are happening around the places where the Maldhari community lives.
Anybody else have a question? You can
Yeah,
unmute
I
yourself.
do. So Aditi, I was really interested in, in learning about whether or not there were local community lands, because it sounds like there's a lot of private land, but are there communal lands, and are you having any success in terms of, interacting with local communities on some of these questions?
Yeah, land is. So the way land is notified and owned in India, there's a different types. Maybe Manya can explain better. Would you like to try?
Yeah. So in our landscape, there is primarily three kinds of ownership. One is a parcel of land for grazing is given to the village council, and as per the number of animals and livestock head they have. So it's under the village council, used by everybody in the village. So it's a common property resource. That's a common land. Other than that, there is a forest department that governs the reserved forest of the area. So the reserved forest will be under their ownership, and they are the custodians of it, in which there is a regular movement of the local community. So either they are, sometimes there is denial of access, sometimes they ignore it completely, they let them graze. And if there is an officer who is very kind, he understands the issue that every land is being given to the industries now. What would the Maldhari do? So they allow them to graze, but not on the plantation area where they are doing the plantation. So that is the second one. And the third one is about this revenue land, which is under the district collector, the revenue department of India. And these may be the land given to the industry, given for residential complexes, hospitals, or maybe just common barren land, which is now being used by the local community because nobody is using it. And as studied by the ISRO, the IIRS, we have an Indian Institute of Remote Sensing. They have classified that land as a wasteland. And although these are categorized as wasteland, these are under the revenue department control, but are free for the Maldhari to use. But these are also fast changing. So to make them even more productive, these are being given to the industries. So yeah, these three kinds of ownership is there. All of the lands are being were previously 50 years ago, 75 years ago, these were community lands, common property resources, but then demarcation, political boundaries kept happening, and now all of their lands have been shrunk. So yeah, this is the reality.
Thanks, Manya.
Yes,
Rasima.
Rasima, please unmute yourself.
Hey everyone. It's so lovely to see you, Aditi, and lovely to meet you, Manya. We've been following your page on Instagram, inspiring work. My question, I think, is I'm curious about your fundraising strategies for the next 2 years until you reach that 3 years kind of criteria for applying for fundings. And the second one probably is, to what extent did you find useful your networking skills and the year spent in Cambridge? Do you think, I mean, the networks you identified will be helpful in, taking or moving forward with your work?
Thank you, Rasima. Firstly, it is so nice to see your face. You look lovely. I'll answer the second question first. Cambridge was quite life-changing in terms of learning a lot of skills. And like I said in the beginning, that there was this idea between me and Manya that we would start something at some point of our own, because when we were working in different organizations, we were constantly in touch with each other, and we would always discuss that this is happening, that is happening, and this is how we think it should be done and all that. And when I came back from Cambridge, she just put her foot down and said, okay, now we have to just start. And I also felt ready because I had been discussing this idea with all of you, with Chris Howard and Pamela Abbott. So those mentorship meetings were really important. And I want to thank Lisa also, if she's here, for putting those mentors making sure they are the right fit. And I got some solid advice in those mentorship meetings. So again, thanks to the community for that. And the networking skills, I remember our the networking event, where I think we learned to make an elevator pitch. And the strategy, this ties into the first question as well. Our strategy right now is to pitch to everyone, every person on the street, every person that we know. And that is what we are doing all the time. I and Manya are just, flipping open our phones and seeing which person works in conservation and just writing to them about we have started this and this is what we are working on, and whoever can help in whatever capacity, that is what we are doing. If you know of a better way, please advise. We tried to reach out to the placement project thing when it was happening, and we would again try maybe this year. And of course, Sandeep ji has been amazingly helpful, which I did not expect at all when I joined the MPhil. Our first project, Conservation Indica's first project, came with his help because he works for the forest department, and he needed some genuine researchers. And so he called us, and then I called Manya and said, okay, let's quit our jobs and now let's start working. Next month, we are going to visit his place, and hopefully we'll get to meet Swapnil also, who was from a previous cohort and works in the neighboring state. So Manya, do you want to add to our finance strategy?
Actually, I've covered everything. The strategy is that only reach out to everybody, reach out to the big organization, find like-minded people, find people who are enablers, rather uh, seeing us as a threat. Rather, the feeling of collaboration is somewhere we all talk about it, but it's not very easy. When we collaborate, it's finances involved, it's time involved, is energy involved. So what we are trying now is also to be tried to be incubated by some of these incubators, like the Nudge Institute is there, like ACE Engine. These the NSR cell, there is an Indian incubator program that houses startups. So this is one strategy that we're trying to see, to look at. So if we can be incubated by a large organization, it can help us be motivated enough to commit to the cause. Because like Aditi said, last year we just left our jobs, and we do not come from a family of generational wealth. And we, for the first 6 months, we were off salaries, no stable income. We were living off of our savings. And since we both have worked in the sector for a decade, we did not come from an industry that used to pay very well. We anyway were living hand to mouth when we were working, and after we left job, it became very difficult. So to keep ourselves motivated, to keep ourselves invested in the dream is also sometimes challenging. It's only happening because Aditya and I have been friends for so long. When one is down, the other person is always there to pick up the other person. So we keep motivating each other. We keep helping each other out. We keep helping each other financially. We cry about finances all the time. But the strategy is if somebody can incubate and invest in our idea and our dream is one. And second is we cannot have CSR grants, we cannot have foreign grants, we cannot have government tenders as well, because even the government tenders require 3 years of operation. So high net individuals committed for conservation, believing in our dream, and some re-granting projects that happens in India, like the philanthropies and some research institute, educational institutes that can actually give out money. So we are reaching to everybody. Everybody in the sector will know conservation indica by by next year, actually. Yeah. So
Just want to add another point. Like these are huge projects, and we need fundraising strategies and all for that. But again, giving the example of the Grassland Premier League, the budget for that was very interestingly shared between us and the community, 50-50 percentage. Each player contributed to playing, and the team owner also contributed. And they cooked themselves, the players, for the audience members and for themselves. And everything from organizing a tent to food and catering and media, the work was distributed. So that kind of collaborations are also helping with fundraising for small events. And that is helping us do things at micro level, not at a big level.
Yes, Leo, maybe This can be the last
Yeah,
question.
I can definitely feel the pressure on the financing and because as you previously mentioned, the people who are running the carbon credits, they have some sort of protection ring fence around their project so that the newcomers cannot come and then get the money. So there are some projects in Myanmar as well, and then the local communities who are actually working on the ground, they are only paid like $2, $3 per day, which is nothing compared to the actual price that they are fetching for carbon markets for the blue carbon mangrove forest restoration work, that the project pricing that they are earning on the market, voluntary market right now. So, but that said, not having to rely on funding from organizations is good in another way. I think is that you are not beholden to this organization to do their bidding. So you have freedom to choose what you want to do. But that said, long-term financial sustainability is also a big concern for the startups like that. So I don't know, how do you do you have any advice on because I remember you give a lecture on grant writing and financing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Aditya and I have been, while you were talking, while everybody's talking, busy sharing information about certainly Rufford Foundation and looking at potential other ideas for funding. And I think, yeah, Aditi, maybe send me an email and we can talk some more about potential options like Darwin Initiative money as well, even though things are going to be tough in the UK right now with our changing political stance over international funding. But we can have a kind of chat on that if you shoot me an email.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you so much. I will do that.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Thank you, everyone. Aditi, I would say maybe leave your email or contact details for people just to reach out or yeah, anything like that. That would be nice. Yeah, our time is up. Thank you all. I will publish this recording on YouTube, so if you want to share and yeah, I will share her details as well in the description of the video. So yeah, thank you all, and it was nice seeing you.
Thank you so much for organizing.
Thank you.
Great
Bye-bye.
stuff. Good to see you
Bye.
guys. Nice to
Thank
meet you,
you.
Mania. Bye. Bye, Aditi.
Bye, Howard.